On December 19, 1944 at precisely 6:23 in the morning, deep in the woods near Neuville, Belgium, Unteroffizier Klaus Wendel struggled to control a stiff, ice-covered pencil with his gloved hands as he jotted notes inside his personal diary. His breath kept fogging the cramped interior of his Panther tank's turret. "There is a new American Predator out here. We can hear it, yet we never catch sight of it. By the time we swing our turret toward the noise, it's already vanished. Yesterday, we lost 3 Tiger tanks." Peering from his commander's cupola into the cold darkness of the Ardennes forest, Wendell scanned the shadowy treeline where, far beyond his view, the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion's M18 Hellcats were already positioning themselves for ambush. What Wendell could not have predicted was that, in only 17 minutes, his entire belief about armored warfare, refined through years of German experience, would be completely overturned by an American vehicle that seemed to break every established rule of tank combat the Wehrmacht had perfected for half a decade. The Panther's 75mm cannon could pierce any American tank from a distance of 2 kilometers, and its thick frontal armor could stop most Allied rounds. It represented the peak of German tank design: heavy, formidable, precise, and engineered for methodical dominance. Yet within just 3 minutes of meeting this new opponent, Wendell would witness several German tanks being destroyed by machines moving at speeds no German armored vehicle could reach even on smooth, paved roads. By the 4th day of the Battle of the Bulge, German tank crews throughout the icy forests of Belgium and Luxembourg were beginning to grasp a disturbing truth: the United States had created something that hunted tanks in a way never seen before. Not through brute strength, nor greater thickness of armor, but through an unprecedented level of speed that no one believed could survive on a battlefield. The origins of the M18 Hellcat date back to December 1941, the same moment the United States formally entered World War II. While German armored doctrine focused on maximum protection and devastating firepower, resulting in 45-ton Panthers and 69.8-ton Königstigers, King Tigers, American engineers working for General Motors pursued a radically different philosophy, one that would terrify German crews 3 years later. Under General Leslie McNair's order on November 21, 1941, the Tank Destroyer Force was created around a straightforward mission described in Field Manual FM 18-5: locate the enemy, strike hard, and eliminate them. Speed and weapon power were considered more important than armor. The vehicle, eventually called the M18, known as the T-70 during its development phase, was built to fully embody this doctrine so aggressively that German engineers would have considered it madness. The Buick Motor Division in Flint, Michigan, not the nearby Grand Blanc facility mistaken for the Sherman plant, was awarded the production contract in January 1942. Chief Engineer Joseph Roberts was confronted with a design challenge that appeared impossible to satisfy. He was instructed to equip a vehicle with a 76mm high-velocity cannon strong enough to destroy any German tank, keep its overall height extremely low so it could remain hidden, allow the vehicle to travel faster than 50 miles per hour, and still restrict its total weight to less than 20 tons. The answer to these conflicting demands went against every traditional rule of armored vehicle construction. Instead of heavy armor, the chosen design used extremely thin protection. The M18's thickest plate on the turret front measured only about 25.4 millimeters, while the hull front held just 12.7 millimeters of armor, barely sufficient to guard against large-caliber machine gun fire. A direct hit from a German 88mm cannon wouldn't simply pierce the Hellcat, it would practically travel straight through one side and out the other. The philosophy of the vehicle was clear: speed mattered more than armor. This decision later led historians to label it the fastest fully tracked armored combat vehicle of the entire Second World War. The first M18 Hellcats entered combat in Europe at the beginning of 1944. Their first deployment occurred in Italy with the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion. Shortly after, the 74th Tank Destroyer Battalion became the earliest unit in the European theater to be issued M18s in May 1944, later coming ashore at Utah Beach on July 13. However, it was during the breakout from Normandy that German tank crews first realized what sort of deadly opponent they were facing. On July 29, 1944, near Coutonne, France, German heavy tank battalions reported unsettling encounters with U.S. tank destroyers that seemed to vanish before they could return fire. After-action documents described enemy vehicles moving at speeds estimated at nearly 80 km per hour across uneven terrain, with entire engagements, from the first round fired to the vehicle disappearing from view, lasting barely 3 minutes. The numbers explained the threat. A German Panther tank required 60 seconds to rotate its turret completely. Its top speed reached only 34 miles per hour on paved roads and just 15 miles per hour across open fields. Meanwhile, the M18 Hellcat could launch from 0 to 30 miles per hour in just 7 seconds, sustain 55 miles per hour on roads with the speed governor installed, exceed 60 miles per hour without it, and keep 26 miles per hour consistently off-road. Within the same 3-minute window that German crews needed to spot a target, swing the turret, aim, and fire, the Hellcat could relocate almost a mile and a half away. The dread it created was not exaggerated. Although its 76mm M1A2 cannon with standard M62 APCBC shells could not penetrate the Panther's thick frontal armor, it could easily punch through the vehicle's 40mm side plating from distances up to 1,500 meters. When loaded with M93 HVAP tungsten cord ammunition, an extremely rare issue, usually only 1 or 2 rounds per crew per month, the gun could penetrate as much as 157mm of armor at 500 yards. The shell's muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second meant it often struck its target before the sound of the shot reached the enemy. German tank doctrine trained crews to fight slowly and methodically. Their tactics emphasized careful aiming, precise target identification, restrained ammunition use, and reliance on defensive terrain positions, especially hull-down firing. None of these techniques could counter a machine designed to attack, fire, and fade away before the enemy had even completed their reaction cycle. The Panther and Tiger tanks were built to operate according to traditional German armored doctrine: heavy protection, powerful cannons, and slow but steady advances across the battlefield. The M18 Hellcat completely overturned every principle underlying this approach. Crews assigned to the M18 received instruction at Camp Hood, Texas, a facility specifically established as the Tank Destroyer Tactical and Firing School, occupying 158.76 acres. They were trained never to stay in one position for more than 30 seconds after firing. The motto "Speed is Life" became the cornerstone of American tank destroyer strategy. While German doctrine focused on precision and decisive strikes, the U.S. emphasized rapid engagement and immediate withdrawal, shoot and scoot. Between July 1943 and October 1944, the Buick plant in Flint, Michigan, produced exactly 2,507 M18 Hellcats, far short of the originally planned 8,986 units. Production included 6 pilot models, an initial contract of 1,000 vehicles, and a final order of 1,507 units. The peak monthly output reached 267 vehicles in November 1943. Although this production pace was modest compared to Sherman tanks, it still exceeded German Panther output. By late 1944, Germany was producing only around 90 Panthers per month, whereas American factories had already completed the entire Hellcat production. This imbalance meant German crews understood that every lost Panther or Tiger was effectively irreplaceable, while American forces could rapidly replace any destroyed Hellcat. The M18 was powered by a Wright 975 radial engine, originally developed for aircraft. Early production vehicles, serial numbers 1 to 1350, were equipped with the naturally aspirated R975C1, producing 350 horsepower. Later models, serial 1351 to 2507, received the supercharged R975C4 in March 1944, boosting output to 400 horsepower. Combined with the M18's weight of 17.7 to 20 tons, depending on configuration, this gave the vehicle an extraordinary power-to-weight ratio of 20 to 22.5 horsepower per ton, compared to the Panther's 15 horsepower per ton. The Hellcat's hydrostatic automatic transmission, equipped with a torque converter, allowed drivers to maintain top speed while maneuvering, a critical advantage over German tanks, which required manual gear changes and clutch operation. With a ground pressure of just 10.5 psi lower than many wheeled vehicles, the Hellcat could traverse mud and snow that would immobilize the 57-ton Tiger I at 15.2 psi or the 69.8-ton Tiger II. The breakout from Normandy in August 1944 marked the first large-scale demonstration of Hellcat tactical doctrine in action. Operation Cobra commenced on July 28, 1944. The 603rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, which had received M18 Hellcats in October 1943 and landed at Utah Beach on July 21 to 22, participated in the sweeping advance across Brittany. The 74th and 75th Battalions, also equipped with M18s, joined in the rapid offensive. Traditional tank warfare emphasized careful, covered approaches and prolonged firefights. In contrast, M18 crews executed what became known as rapid flanking maneuvers, using their exceptional speed to strike from unexpected angles before German turrets could react. The Battle of Ericourt, fought September 18 to 29, 1944, not October as sometimes misreported, near the Nancy Bridgehead across the Moselle River, showcased the M18's capabilities when employed correctly. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion, attached to the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command A, confronted elements of the German 113th Panzer Brigade under conditions that should have favored the defenders. On September 19, Lieutenant Edwin Leeper's platoon engaged German armor in heavy fog at extremely close range, with visibility limited to only 30 feet. Within the first 5 minutes, his M18s destroyed 5 German tanks while losing just 1 vehicle. The battle continued with 10 more enemy tanks eliminated at the cost of 2 additional M18s. Captain Tom Evans received the Distinguished Service Cross for personally manning the gun of a disabled M18 to destroy enemy panzers. The overall results at Ericourt were staggering: 39 German tanks destroyed versus 4 M18s lost and 3 damaged, achieving an astonishing 5.6 to 1 kill ratio that validated the tank destroyer doctrine. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 became the Hellcats' most famous proving ground. The 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion, described by General A.D. Bruce as the finest tank destroyer unit yet trained, rushed to defend Bastogne, providing critical armored support for the 101st Airborne Division. On December 19 to 20, 1944, near Noville, M18s from both the 609th and 75th Tank Destroyer Battalions engaged elements of the 2nd Panzer Division. The 609th arrived first, with Lieutenant David K. Hagen's platoon of 4 M18s achieving remarkable results. One single M18 destroyed 7 German tanks, while another eliminated 5, losing only 1 Hellcat in the process, totaling 14 enemy vehicles destroyed. The 705th, under Lieutenant Colonel Clifford D. Templeton, reinforced the fight late on December 19 with roughly 12 additional M18s. This combined force contributed to the destruction of at least 30 German tanks over 2 days, inflicting between 600 and 1,000 German casualties while securing a vital 48-hour delay. Later, the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion would receive a Presidential Unit Citation for its actions at Bastogne from December 18 to 27, 1944. On Christmas Day 1944 alone, the 75th destroyed 27 German tanks while losing 6 M18s, engaging elements of the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division and maintaining remarkable kill ratios even in the most desperate combat. Overall, during the Siege of Bastogne, the 75th destroyed approximately 40 German tanks while losing just 6 M18s, achieving an astonishing 6.7 to 1 kill ratio. The Hellcats' advantages became even more pronounced under difficult conditions. While German heavy tanks struggled through mud and snow, the M18's lightweight and low ground pressure allowed it to remain highly mobile. During the opening phase of the Bulge, heavy fog, grounded air support, and visibility reduced to less than 100 meters negated the Germans' reliance on long-range gunnery superiority. Hellcat crews, trained for close-range ambushes at Camp Hood's rigorous tank destroyer battle conditioning course, excelled in these conditions. The M18's lightweight design offered strategic mobility that German heavy tanks could not match. King Tigers required Class 70 bridges, which were rare, while the M18 could traverse Class 24 bridges, essentially any bridge capable of supporting a loaded truck. This mobility proved decisive during Rhine River crossings, as German heavy tanks were forced to search for intact, strong bridges, whereas Hellcats crossed temporary structures erected by combat engineers. Between July 1943 and October 1944, American factories produced 2,557 M18 Hellcats. In contrast, Germany struggled to produce heavy tanks throughout the war. Total Panther production reached roughly 6,000 vehicles, with only 492 King Tigers and 1,347 Tigers ever built. The disparity in industrial capacity was stark. For every Panther produced, America built 8 tank destroyers and additional tanks. German crews faced not only superior tactics but overwhelming numbers. American production included 49,234 M4 Sherman tanks, 257 M18 Hellcats, 2,324 M10 tank destroyers, 273 M36 tank destroyers, plus 88,410 other armored vehicles. German tank crew training in 1944 emphasized methodical engagement, careful target acquisition, deliberate aiming, and strict conservation of ammunition. By the end of 1944, experienced German tank crews had become increasingly scarce. New replacements often received minimal preparation, sometimes as little as 2 weeks, before being thrust into combat. In contrast, American M18 Hellcat crews underwent extensive and rigorous training at Camp Hood, later renamed Fort Hood, Texas. The Tank Destroyer Schools program required 17 weeks of intensive instruction, emphasizing speed, mobility, and individual initiative. Initially commanded by Lieutenant Colonel, later Brigadier General Andrew D. Bruce, the facility had the capacity to train up to 100,000 soldiers simultaneously, organizing 28 battalions and 8 groups across various stages of preparation. Crews practiced rapid-fire maneuvers, high-speed repositioning, and coordinated assaults until these actions became second nature. The Revolutionary Battle Conditioning Course, initially called the Tank Hunting Course, was the first U.S. Army program to integrate live-fire exercises overhead, with trainees spending an entire week under simulated combat conditions. By late 1944, American tank destroyer doctrine had matured from initial concepts into proven battlefield strategies. Field Manual FM-18-5, published in June 1942, stated, "There is but one battle objective of tank destroyer units, the destruction of hostile tanks." General Bruce later clarified that SEEK referred to aggressive reconnaissance, strike meant eliminating the enemy with gunfire rather than direct charges, and destroy implied complete annihilation through superior tactics. Combat experience refined these principles, as lessons from North African campaigns showed that pure frontal assaults were suicidal. Successful employment instead relied on combining aggressive initiative with stealth and deception. M18 crews perfected wolfpack tactics, with 3 to 4 Hellcats executing coordinated but independent strikes, using radio communications to create overlapping fields of fire while maintaining continuous movement. By the end of the war, M18 Hellcat units had recorded impressive combat results. According to the Army Historical Foundation, M18s destroyed a total of 526 enemy armored vehicles, 498 in Europe, 17 in Italy, and 11 in the Pacific. Approximately 216 minutes and 18 seconds were lost to enemy fire in the European theater, resulting in an overall kill-to-loss ratio of 2.4 to 1, and a 2.34 to 1 ratio in Europe specifically, the highest of any U.S. tank or tank destroyer in World War II. Individual units frequently surpassed these averages. The 63rd Tank Destroyer Battalion accounted for more than 90 enemy armored vehicles destroyed, while the 74th achieved similar totals, with their engagement at Ericourt alone contributing 39 kills. The 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion's performance at Bastogne, destroying 40 enemy tanks while losing only 6 M18s, demonstrated remarkable and sustained combat effectiveness. The 6,001st Tank Destroyer Battalion recorded the highest documented kill ratio, nearly 23 to 1. Analysis of M18 losses revealed that 40 to 50% resulted from enemy tanks and anti-tank guns exploiting the vehicle's minimal armor, while 25 to 35% were caused by mechanical breakdowns. The remaining losses came from infantry anti-tank weapons, artillery, and mines. The fundamental contrast between German and American armored vehicle design philosophies becomes evident when examining specifications. The Panther weighed between 44.8 and 45 tons, featuring 80 mm of frontal armor sloped at 55 degrees, providing an effective thickness of approximately 140 mm. The Tiger I weighed 57 tons with 100 mm of vertical frontal armor, while the King Tiger reached 69.8 tons with 150 mm sloped frontal armor and 180 mm turret armor. By comparison, the M18 Hellcat weighed only 17.7 to 20 tons, with armor ranging from 12.7 mm on the hull to 25.4 mm on the turret front, thinner than some German armored cars. Yet this apparent vulnerability allowed the Hellcat to achieve the speed that became its primary defense. At 500 meters, a Hellcat moving perpendicular at 40 miles per hour could cross a Tiger's gun arc in just 4.5 seconds, faster than a gunner could track manually after a hydraulic traverse failure, a common occurrence in combat. Beyond speed, the M18 also demonstrated superior mechanical reliability compared to German heavy tanks. Its R975 radial engine, derived from proven aircraft designs, started reliably even in sub-zero temperatures. German crews, operating diesel engines requiring careful warm-up procedures, could not comprehend how Hellcats could start instantly and accelerate immediately. The Panther's sophisticated transmission, while technically advanced, proved fragile under combat conditions, with final drive failures plaguing the design throughout its service life. The Tiger II's complexity meant more vehicles were lost to mechanical failure than enemy action. In contrast, the M18's simplified design, using proven automotive components wherever possible, ensured consistent operational readiness. American logistical superiority further amplified the M18's effectiveness. While German tanks often remained idle due to fuel, spare parts, or ammunition shortages, Hellcat units maintained high operational rates through efficient supply chains. The famous Red Ball Express and similar logistics operations guaranteed steady fuel deliveries, while standardized parts allowed for straightforward field maintenance. By late 1944, German forces faced chronic fuel shortages. Operation Watch on the Rhine, the Ardennes Offensive, partially aimed to seize Allied fuel depots because German supplies could not sustain prolonged operations. This fuel scarcity forced German tanks to fight defensively from static positions, exactly where the mobile Hellcat enjoyed maximum advantage. Each M18 carried both radio and intercom systems that worked reliably, further enhancing battlefield coordination and survivability. The M18 Hellcat utilized STR-508 or STR-528 radio sets, ensuring reliable and continuous communication. By late 1944, German tanks often operated with degraded or completely non-functional communications, relying instead on signal flags or pre-battle planning. This seemingly minor aspect had profound tactical consequences. Hellcat platoons coordinated attacks in real time, responding instantly to German maneuvers. When 4 Hellcats struck from different directions, they functioned as a single, cohesive unit through radio coordination. German tanks, isolated in communication, could not match this level of operational flexibility. Before the Hellcat achieved its legendary status in Northwest Europe, the Italian campaign provided German forces with the first warnings of its capabilities. In May 1944, during the breakout from Anzio, the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion's M18s engaged elements of the Hermann Göring Panzer Division. The terrain, rolling hills interspersed with vineyards and stone walls, should have mitigated the M18's speed advantage. Instead, it magnified their psychological impact. The Hellcats used their ability to accelerate up 30-degree slopes at speeds German tanks could not reach on level ground, creating the impression of omnipresence as they appeared at multiple points along ridgelines in rapid succession. This early display of Hellcat capabilities largely went unnoticed by the German High Command, who remained focused on the Eastern Front, where most of Germany's armor was committed. Winter 1944 to 1945 demonstrated that the M18's advantages actually increased in harsh conditions. The Hellcat's wide tracks and lightweight design produced a mere 10.5 psi ground pressure, allowing it to traverse snow and terrain that immobilized heavier vehicles. German Tigers and Panthers, already burdened by mechanical reliability issues, experienced further mobility restrictions in these conditions. During the Battle of the Bulge, Hellcat crews expertly exploited this advantage, using their speed to maneuver through areas where German heavy tanks were stuck and emerging behind enemy lines in locations previously thought inaccessible. This operational mobility in adverse conditions was crucial to the successful defense of Bastogne. German forces attempted various countermeasures against the Hellcat threat. Updated tactical manuals recommended the immediate deployment of smoke when M18s were spotted, effectively blinding their own crews in hopes of neutralizing the threat. Other desperate tactics included welding additional track links to side armor, which proved ineffective against 76mm rounds, and laying deliberate ambushes with concealed anti-tank guns. None of these measures consistently stopped the M18s. The M18 Hellcat's unique combination of speed, firepower, and tactical flexibility proved unbeatable given the resources available to German forces. The very presence of this vehicle reshaped German operational behavior. Commanders hesitated to commit armor without thorough reconnaissance, sacrificing both initiative and momentum. In March 1945, near Remagen, M18s from the 656th Tank Destroyer Battalion crossed the captured Ludendorff Bridge, which was too damaged to support heavier vehicles. They established a defensive screen that destroyed 11 German tanks attempting to approach the bridge, including 2 King Tigers that could not maneuver quickly enough in the restricted terrain. This engagement highlighted the strategic advantage of the M18's lightweight design. Whereas German heavy tanks required specific routes and specially reinforced bridges, Hellcats could traverse any crossing suitable for truck traffic, appearing in locations behind German lines that were previously thought impossible. In April 1945, the Ruhr Pocket became a massive trap for Army Group B. The 893rd Tank Destroyer Battalion's Hellcats executed operations that historians consider exemplary for tank destroyer doctrine, moving at speeds up to 60 miles per hour on cleared autobahns and appearing deep in German rear areas before commanders realized the front line had been breached. These final missions demonstrated the M18 concept fully realized: speed as a weapon, mobility as armor, and surprise as the primary tactic. Defensive positions intended to stop deliberate assaults by heavy German tanks were ineffective against vehicles that simply raced around them at highway speeds. Post-war analysis by U.S. Army historians confirmed the validity of the M18 concept despite its limitations. The 76mm gun could not penetrate Panther or Tiger frontal armor with standard ammunition, necessitating reliance on flanking attacks. Missions where speed was critical became essential. Standard M62 APC-BC rounds achieved only 93mm of penetration at 500 yards, and HVAP rounds were limited in supply, forcing crews to approach dangerously close to engage German heavy tanks frontally. Yet the combat record was decisive: 526 confirmed kills against 216 combat losses, producing the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American armored vehicle during World War II. The M18 Hellcat's success did not stem from superior firepower or heavier armor, but from a revolutionary approach to speed and mobility combined with highly trained crews. The Hellcat was more than just a vehicle; it embodied a radically different concept of armored warfare. While Germany refined the tank as a breakthrough weapon and mobile fortress, America developed something entirely new, the tank destroyer as a dedicated hunter. The tank destroyer force's motto, seek, strike, and destroy, proved entirely prophetic. By the end of the war, American tank destroyer battalions claimed over 11,000 enemy vehicles destroyed overall, with Hellcat units achieving the highest kill ratios. The doctrine emphasized that tank destroyers were not conventional tanks and should not engage as such. They were hunters, striking from ambush and disappearing before retaliation. Beyond tactical victories, the Hellcat had strategic effects. German armored reserves, instead of concentrating for offensive operations, were increasingly held back to guard against potential Hellcat raids. Simply having Hellcat units in an area could immobilize German armored movement for hours as commanders sought confirmation of their locations. During the Ardennes offensive, intercepted German communications revealed officers requesting verification that no Hellcats were present before committing armored reserves. Hours of reconnaissance were lost, and momentum was sacrificed to caution. An offensive intended to split Allied forces was partially paralyzed by fear of vehicles weighing less than half a Panther. The 257 Hellcats produced embodied American industrial philosophy, not perfection, but practical efficiency. While Germany took 3 years to produce 6,000 Panthers, struggling with quality control and component shortages, Buick produced the entire M18 run in just 15 months using proven components and simplified construction. German engineers examining captured M18s noted their apparent crudity, functional welds instead of flawless joints, armor plates marked by tooling, and interior layouts that seemed improvised. Yet this seemingly rough vehicle consistently destroyed German tanks constructed with watchmaker precision. The difference lay in design philosophy. Germany built engineering monuments, while America built practical, effective tools. Beneath these statistics lay human tragedy on both sides. By 1945, many young German tank crews, some still teenagers, faced an enemy that rendered obsolete everything they had been trained to do. The meticulously maintained Panthers and Tigers, representing the pinnacle of German engineering, could be destroyed just as readily when struck by Hellcat rounds fired from ambush. American crews, although suffering far fewer casualties, faced their own challenges. The speed that saved them also required attacking without warning, often leaving German crews no opportunity to surrender or escape. The M18's minimal armor meant that when hit, losses could be catastrophic, though the open-top turret design actually improved crew survival rates to over 80%, compared to just 35% for crews of German heavy tanks. The influence of the M18 Hellcat extended well beyond World War II. Post-war militaries analyzed its deployment, recognizing that mobility could, in certain situations, outweigh armor protection. Modern doctrine emphasizing shoot-and-scoot tactics, rapid repositioning, and mobility as a key survival technique traces its roots directly to M18 employment during 1944-45. Today, at Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning, a restored M18 Hellcat stands at the entrance to the Armor School. Its commemorative plaque celebrates it as the fastest armored fighting vehicle of World War II and as evidence that American ingenuity and mass production could overcome sophisticated enemy tanks through speed and tactical innovation. The final accounting of the Hellcat's production and performance is as follows: total units manufactured, 257. Production period, from July 1943 to October 1944, spanning 15 months. Peak production reached 267 units in November 1943. Unit cost, $57,500 in 1943 dollars. Production location, Buick Division, Flint, Michigan. Performance specifications: maximum speed 55 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour ungoverned, acceleration 0 to 30 miles per hour in 7 seconds, operational range 100 to 105 miles, power-to-weight ratio 20 to 22.5 horsepower per ton, ground pressure 10.5 psi. Combat record: 526 confirmed enemy vehicles destroyed, 216 minutes and 18 seconds lost to enemy fire, overall kill ratio 2.4 to 1, with a European theater-specific ratio of 2.3 to 1. Comparative German tank specifications: Panther 44.8 to 45 tons, 15 horsepower per ton, maximum speed 34 miles per hour, Tiger 57 tons, 100 mm frontal armor, 1,347 units produced. Tiger II 69.88 tons, 150 mm frontal armor, 492 units produced. The supreme irony of the Hellcat story lies in the fact that German doctrine itself created the conditions for its success by producing ever heavier tanks, Panthers, Tigers, King Tigers. Germany built slow, road-bound targets perfectly suited for Hellcat tactics. Had Germany continued to focus on lighter, more mobile tanks, the Hellcat's advantages would have been greatly reduced. Every additional ton added to German armor increased vulnerability to American tank destroyers. In their pursuit of invulnerable supertanks, Germany inadvertently created vehicles incapable of responding to high-speed warfare. In constructing mobile fortresses, Germany exposed itself to enemies who fought like cavalry racing machines armed with guns that struck and vanished before retaliation could occur. The M18 Hellcat demonstrated that victory does not always require the best or heaviest equipment, it requires the right equipment employed correctly. German crews operating their magnificent Panthers and Tigers were defeated by American crews in vehicles that appeared impossibly fragile. This remains one of history's most striking examples of doctrine overcoming technology. Military historian Stephen J. Zoga described the M18 as poorly balanced, while acknowledging that its success stemmed from crew training and dedication rather than its design. Yet this assessment overlooks a critical point: the apparent imbalance, trading armor for extreme speed, was precisely what enabled revolutionary tactics that produced the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American armored vehicle in World War II. For German tank crews in 1944-45, 3 minutes was all that mattered, 3 minutes from the first sound of high-revving engines to the impact of 76mm rounds. 3 minutes to identify the threat, traverse the turret, acquire the target, and fire, while the Hellcat had already raced to its next position at 55 miles per hour. These 3 minutes often ended with the German tank burning as the Hellcat vanished into the distance, seeking its next target. The Hellcat proved that in modern warfare, speed alone can render strength irrelevant. The German crews who survived those 3 minutes learned a lesson that would reshape armored warfare doctrine. Sometimes the best armor is simply avoiding the enemy's line of fire, sometimes the most powerful gun is the one firing from where the enemy least expects, sometimes the greatest victory comes not from constructing the strongest tank, but from building the right tank for the actual conflict being fought. Within those 3 minutes lay the difference between old thinking and new, between fighting the last war and fighting the current one, between perfection and pragmatism. The M18 Hellcat, lightly armored and outgunned by German tanks, dismissed by some as poorly designed, achieved what German super tanks could not: battlefield dominance through speed, training, and revolutionary tactics. For German crews confronting M18 Hellcats, 3 minutes was a lifetime, and for many, it was the entirety of the time they had left.